You ever wake up to find out your own front door doesn't recognize you anymore? I mean, I knew the neighborhood politics were bad, but I didn't know I'd have to defend my house against someone waving a master key like she owned the whole block. There was Charlotte standing on my porch, key in hand, acting like the queen of Pine Hollow, trying to twist her way into my life before breakfast. She didn't flinch when I told her that key doesn't work here anymore, just hovered there, lips tight, using her official HOA voice to tell me I was in violation for refusing a wellness check during occupancy uncertainty. If you could have seen her face when I showed her the motion sensor log, yep, caught her sneaking up at 2:13 a.m. Well, you'd understand why I wasn't exactly shaking in my slippers. Let me back up a sec. I'm Evelyn Carter, 47, retired firefighter widow, mother to a cop who's the spitting image of his dad, calm when it counts and stubborn when it matters. My parents built this house back in '78, planted the pine tree out front to watch over us. I laid my mom's ashes beneath that tree last fall. This place isn't just walls, it's blood and memory, and I don't care how many times someone like Charlotte tries to find me out of it, this is mine. So where y'all watching from? Drop your city in the comments. If you've ever had to stand your ground against a neighbor who thinks a clipboard is a badge, you know where this is headed. And let me tell you, it gets messier. Charlotte finally stepped back, realized I wasn't going to wilt just because she quoted some bylaw. There's a process, she said, waving that clipboard like a sword. You're not above the rules. I grinned. You know that grin you use when you've already got the winning cards but you're waiting for the reveal? She tried to hit me with a violation for not reporting an overnight occupant. My son lives here now. She didn't know or didn't care, but her key was illegal. Her complaint was nonsense and her tone was brittle as old chalk. Expect a follow-up letter. She snapped, storming off the porch. I shut the door, let the quiet settle. My son Mason came out from the hall with his coffee, smirking. You handled that better than I would have. I just shrugged. Let's see how long it takes her to remember you're a cop. Not long, he said. Long enough for her to screw up. The thing about folks like Charlotte, they don't know when to stop. By lunch, I had 2 more letters from the HOA, both listing violations. I'd never heard of excess debris. There's nothing in my yard but that old pine and a bird bath and unauthorized structural modifications because I replaced a gutter after the last storm. She even flagged the pine tree, said it wasn't aesthetically compliant. I started writing everything down like Mason taught me date-time violation code. Mom, no one's going to believe your word alone anymore, he always said. But it wasn't just the letters. Charlotte had mounted a new community safety light on the telephone pole outside, except tucked under the bulb was a little black lens. Surveillance in a neighborhood where everybody already watched everyone. You know what I mean? This wasn't about safety, it was about control. One afternoon, the HOA's vice president, Derek, knocked clipboard in hand, sweat running down his cheek. He looked like he wanted to be anywhere but standing in my living room. Charlotte wants a personal inspection, he said, voice barely above a whisper. I let him in, watched him avoid my husband's photo on the mantel. You ever feel like you're doing something you don't believe in, he asked. Almost daily, I told him. That broke something loose. He admitted Charlotte was digging for an old legacy clause, buried in the original deeds, one that protected founding families like mine from new cosmetic ordinances. She wanted to erase it, close the loophole before anyone noticed. She talks about you like you're an infestation, Derek said, his hand shaking. I almost felt bad for him, almost. But a little empathy doesn't stop a bulldozer, so I started digging for the original paperwork. Down in the basement. No, not one of those HGTV finished basements. I'm talking dust, old boxes, spider webs, the works. I found my dad's deed, the amendment, everything Charlotte hoped was lost. There it was in my father's handwriting, permanent residence, non-negotiable upon future HOA acquisition, as legally bulletproof as you can get in this town. That's when things got weird. Footsteps upstairs, light, not heavy like Mason's. When I got back up, the back door was open, just a crack, no one in sight. But now I didn't trust anything. Mason called, want me to come over. No, just needed his legal advice. Cameras inside and out. Totally legal, Mom, he said, and make sure to back everything up. I spent the night scanning and duplicating every document, hiding them in Dad's old ammo tin under the hallway floorboard. Let them try to take my house, they'd have to rip it up plank by plank. Here's where it gets juicy, a twist I didn't see coming. Francis, one of the garden club folks, showed up with news. Charlotte was planning to revoke my voting rights, called me emotionally unstable, tried to label my house a threat to community cohesion. But Francis, she'd had enough. She slipped me copies of board meeting minutes, told me about late-night talks Charlotte had with Gary, another board member, about getting me thrown out. And then Derek showed up again, handed me a USB drive, said nothing, just nodded. On it, a recording of Charlotte plotting to have my deed reviewed by her friend's private law firm, off the books, totally shady. You ever have one of those moments where you realize the rules don't protect you, but they can bury the person trying to break them? That was me standing there, files in hand, the whole plan laid out. With all this in my pocket, I started getting braver, printing out flyers, inviting the neighborhood to the next HOA meeting, asking them to come see what happens when your HOA violates the law. By the time the meeting rolled around, the room was packed, not with Charlotte's loyalists, but with the regular folks, the ones who'd been quietly steamrolled for years. I stood up, laid out the certified survey, the amended deed, the video of Charlotte trespassing, the messages she'd sent, trying to intimidate me. For the first time, the board hesitated. Gary finally spoke up, admitted he never authorized her actions. Francis backed him. Even Derek raised his hand in support. 4 out of 7 majority rules, Charlotte. She tried to gavel the meeting shut, but her power was gone. The sheriff's department had the evidence. The neighbors saw the truth with their own eyes. When I walked out, I didn't feel like a hero, just tired, relieved, maybe a little surprised that the world didn't end when I stopped being quiet. The best part. Next day, Francis brought coffee and news. Charlotte had resigned, the board was dissolving. Neighbors started dropping by, asking for help with their own deed questions. Harold, the never-gets-involved neighbor, handed me an old brass compass that belonged to my dad. "Always check your lines yourself," he said. "People lie, land doesn't." And maybe for the first time in a long while, I believed it. Not because the HOA rules changed, but because people started standing up. The county reinstated our original boundary, slapped the HOA with a warning. The new board was talking about resident roundtables, actual transparency. The old tree out front, still standing, roots deeper than any bylaw, still watching over us. So if you've ever had to push back against people who twist the rules for their own power, know this: you're not alone. Drop your story in the comments, tell me where you're from, because community is built by the folks who refuse to let anyone else write their ending. And as for Charlotte, well, some roots you just can't dig up no matter how sharp your shovel.